We've been looking up at the stars for almost all of our existence, and we've been asking ourselves all kinds of questions about them. What are stars? Why are they so bright, and why is there so much darkness between them? Will we ever go where these stars are? What will we find there? Well, according to X Beyond the Frontier, we'll find capitalism.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
Yeah, sorry mate, but there is capitalism up the wazoo there. But let's start at the beginning, shall we? X Beyond the Frontier is a space flight, trade and fight simulator from the far gone year of 1999. Back when the Spice Girls did stuff and Eminem was controversial and the worst thing a president could do was get a blowjob at the White House. I was doing all sorts of stuff in this mysterious year of 1999, like walking, sometimes peeing the bed and watching Teletubbies. You know, typical stuff for a 3-year-old to do. So, I wasn't too blown away when Egosoft released X Beyond the Frontier on the 1st of July in the year of our androgynous icon, Prince. I would not become interested until the futuristic year of 2002 arrived. Now that I was a whopping 6 years old, I honestly still didn't have all that much to do with technology, but my big brother now had a computer of his own, and one of the games that he decided to install on said computer was X Beyond the Frontier. This game blew my mind. Having already watched quite a bit of Star Trek gave me a basic understanding of what science fiction was, so I wasn't a stranger to spaceships and energy weapons, but this was different to Star Trek. The game starts off harmless enough. Oh, and by harmless I mean we are getting confronted with humanity's hubris. You see, in X Beyond the Frontier, or X1 as I will maybe refer to it from now on, humanity managed to conquer the stars by building gates amongst said stars that connect point A with point B without having to traverse all of that pesky A to B or B to A stuff. Naturally, these gates among the stars were called jump gates. We also created AI that could help us make planets habitable. Thank fuck AI never screwed humanity over in any sci-fi story ever, and thank even more of a fuck that the idea of terraforming planets can't possibly be weaponized. Right, Khan?
I spit.
Right on. Ah, shucks, we lost all of our colonies, and the AI we created is now on its way to finish the job by terraforming Earth. But some brave heroes intervened, luring the AI ships into the last jump gate. Finally, once every last ship had flown through the gate, it was destroyed, never to let any of the AI ships near Earth or its sun ever again. The end. Or was it? You see, a few hundred years go by, and now humanity is finally willing to venture into the depths of space again. This time, however, they've learned from their previous mistakes, and installed the jump technology from the gates into a ship, the experimental shuttle, or X-Shuttle for short. So, if any evil AI would want to go back to Earth via jump technology, they would have to humiliate themselves by squeezing into a teeny tiny itsy bitsy cockpit. Like a clown car. By the way, here you can see the inside of said cockpit, because, surprise, surprise, you are the pilot of this exciting and guaranteed not to fail new ship. If you're a bit of a sci-fi person and you're seeing this partially rotating station right next to the moon, you might be reminded of a specific station from Babylon 5. Or if you're an actual OG, you might have seen Star Trek Into Pekinning and you know it from there. This is somewhat of a theme for this game, where a ship or station design or maybe attributes of a race seem oddly familiar to a science fiction fan. The Teladi, for example, are clearly inspired by the Star Trek race of the Ferengi, and their trading stations look a lot like that one wheel-shaped space station from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As previously mentioned, you are the test pilot of this new X shuttle, and after not ramming into stuff and not shooting at the station, if you do either of those, your commanding officer will have you demoted and sent to Antarctica. You finally get to try out the new jump engine, and...
Ship systems malfunctioning. System check initiated. Shields malfunction. Laser broken. Ship hull critical. Conventional engine working. Weapon systems out of order.
You are now stranded in a completely unknown part of the galaxy with a heavily damaged, shield and weaponless ship, all while your jump engine has been completely destroyed. You are greeted in Japanese, I want to say, by a lizard person from one weird-looking gigantic ship. They want to know who you are, where you came from, and if you're dangerous. After a bit of a back and forth, the lizard person decides to help you by giving you a shield and lending you 100 credits, the in-game currency. The only condition for this act of kindness is that you repay the lizard 35 times the amount he gave you. How do we get those 3,500 credits? Well, by trading, of course. There are plenty of stations in this sector you arrived in alone. Also, surprise, surprise, there are jump gates here, just like the ones humanity used to have. The space lizard also tells you that you look like some species called the Argons. Creative name, eh? Well, if Superman's home planet can be called Krypton, I guess it won't matter if some other weird aliens are named after stuff from the periodic table as well. Let's just not make a habit out of it. The lizard tells you beyond which gate you might be able to find these Argons and sends you on your way. On your slow, and by slow, I mean painfully slow way. You are this slow because you do not yet possess one essential item, the SETA, or SINZA if you're German. It's basically a warp drive, but the in-universe explanation is that it bends time. Meaning, even though shit looks a lot faster from your point of view, the reality of the matter is that everyone around you is still experiencing time normally. And, just to clarify, you won't be able to outrun anyone with this engine unless your ship was naturally faster than them. It does lead to some stupefyingly funny game over moments when, due to time dilation, the enemy ships rip you apart in like half a second. Even though you don't have that time whatchamacallit yet, you can use the temporary boost, which just as temporarily drains your shields. These shields will recharge, but if you use your boost for too long, it will overheat and destroy your ship. Not shown here. To get the time dilation thing, you'll have to start trading. The cheapest items to trade are energy cells, and oh boy do I have to tell you all about energy cells. You see, everything in the X universe runs on energy cells. Great, you say naively. So, how are they made? Glad you asked, I reply smugly. They are made in so-called solar plants. The name kind of implies that they only need sunlight, but that's not quite true. Oh, no. They also need crystals. Okay, you say somewhat less enthusiastically. Where do crystals come from then? From crystal fabs, of course, you silly goose. Do crystal fabs need energy cells? Yeah, fuck yeah they do. You guessed it. That doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. The entire multi-sector economy would collapse if it wasn't for the so-called God engine stepping in and refilling shit when it is needed. In all honesty though, given how well developed every species' technology is, one would think that energy cells really do only need sunlight, as I assume they only concentrate the incoming light. But this does not seem to be the case. The crystals are actively being used up as if there was some kind of crystal monster inside each of these plants just chomping away at them. This in turn means that the entire galactical economy is based on finite resources, which once again means it would collapse after you waste too much time doing God knows what. It almost feels like a capitalism critique if it wasn't for the fact that the engine just keeps the system on a respirator. But anyway, the cheapest price to get one energy cell for is 6 credits, and the highest you can sell it for is about 23 credits. Given this difference, it becomes quite obvious why you should use this resource to make your first 1k. Once you get about 300 credits, go get the Zeta, because now the game actually feels like a normal game, and not like Desert Bus, but in space. Flying without the SETA truly is an exercise in patience. How much patience? Well, let me give you an idea. I will use the uninterrupted flight of the X shuttle from the Teladi Phoenix, so that's the first lizard ship you encounter, up until the moment when you can actually afford the SETA, while I talk about the game's atmosphere. Ready? Let's go! Now, X Beyond the Frontier is a game that could, in theory, also work with very limited graphics. A 2D environment would be enough to get both the travel and trade done. Simply, the combat would be somewhat limited in its scope. However, in a purely 2D space, certain aspects would not shine. Every sector that you visit has its own little composition of 3D model planets, nebulas, and star clusters to marvel at. Sometimes, these planets take over almost a fourth of your complete 360-degree viewing space. These planets are, as previously mentioned, 3D models. They are not part of the skybox. They rotate, and sometimes they have an exposed core. Some of these sectors don't have any planets at all, and this in turn makes you feel a bit uneasy. Even though none of these planets can be interacted with or reached, they do give you a semblance of familiarity as a stranger in a strange land. There are people on these planets, or at least life forms not too dissimilar from people. They are born, they live, and they die. It eases the immense feeling of isolation you feel as the only human in this corner of space. The only breadcrumb of information you have on how to maybe get home is that you kind of look like some other species. You feel somewhat aimless, vulnerable, and filled with dread that you might never see home again. Trading helps you remain sane, as there is a mathematical logic to it, but it still feels oh so strange to be stranded here on the shores of infinity. The final brushstroke to perfect this vista of solitude among billions of foreign stars is the soundtrack. The tracks vary between anxious anticipation and whimsical wonder. The selection screen theme alone speaks of a longing for the infinite, a melancholic joy of unknowable depths. Should you encounter a threat in the shape of a pirate ship or the infamous Xenon, the tunes will adjust from symphonies of the infinite to either a frantic, energetic piece, evoking chaotic battle scenes, or a slowly building uprise from the abyss, irregardless of which track plays. If someone wants to destroy your ship this early in the game, they'll have an easy time doing so. Your shielding is weak and your weapons haven't been bought yet. Evasive maneuvers are your only choice, and maybe if you're lucky, You make it to a station, and there you can dock. If the station grants you docking rights, all your tension will be lifted, as this music starts to play. It does play every time you dock, and I do have to admit that after a while it gets a tiny bit annoying, but nonetheless it does feel like the theme song of a safe haven. Once you slowed down your engines and did not collide with the docking hatch, you are finally being greeted by the station's automatic greeting audio and a sweeping shot of the interior. Okay, quick diatribe. You never walk around in any of these stations, at least not in this game. These stations, coincidentally speaking, are also impossible to exist in the first place, if you disregard the fact that you can expand your own cargo bay capacity. Yes, the physical space of your own ship's cargo bay can be expanded using quantum bullshit. I call it that because, let's be honest, the explanation the game gives you can be reduced to TARDIS logic. The same logic can be applied to these stations' interior. Some of these stations can barely fit the ship inside if observed from the outside, but offer a lot of space on the inside. But back to the matter of leaving your ship. You don't. So, in turn, this implies that you eat, shit and sleep in this one cockpit. Granted, having maybe a hatch of sorts underneath your butt that lets you do your business and then have it sucked out into the vastness of space, potentially even traveling through jump gates, is kind of funny, but it seems a bit silly now, doesn't it? No, I am fairly certain that one can easily picture the protagonist leaving his ship to take a dump on an alien toilet and get a quick bite of Agnes beef at the station bar. The alternative would be too sad, as well as too silly. Speaking of silly, you want to save the game? Well, that'll be 1/10 of your starting budget. Hold up, what? Oh yes, salvage insurance, better known as saving the goddamn game, costs you 10 credits. So now you only have 90 credits left. Sure, you'll be able to trade your way up the capitalist space lizard ladder, but don't forget, your ship is still really slow. Once you finally get the space-time stretchy engine, you can also truly start to explore the surrounding sectors. You started off in the sector Seaswell, which is part of the Teladi Corporation, aka the Teladi Territory. A corpocracy, they are somewhat neutrally aligned towards you and let you dock and trade at their stations. Every sector you come across has at least one and at most 4 gates: east, west, north and south. From your starting sector, you can decide to just go exploring in either direction. There are 54 sectors in total, with the Teladi owning 9 of them. There is no in-game galaxy map showing all these sectors in relation to one another. My brother used to put sticker notes on his door with every note representing a sector just so that he would not get confused. East of the Teladi, you'll be rudely insulted by the Split, who own 8 sectors, and won't attack you, but they also won't let you dock at their stations. Theirs is a patriarchal society, so basically, rule me daddy, ooh ooh, but like more war-hungry. West of the Teladi, you'll find some friendly faces with the aquatic creatures known as Borons. These dudes are chill, despite being a monarchy with only 6 sectors to their name. South of the Borons, you'll find the species that the Teladi captain told you about. Upon asking about Earth, they will just laugh at you, like you're some sort of crazy person. Unless you encounter a so-called goner. That's not a gooner, that's a never mind. More about them in a minute. The Argon territory spans a whopping 15 sectors, and they will serve as the default good guys for this game, since you interact with them the most. South of their borders, you'll find the unpleasant Paranid, who, fittingly enough, are often in cahoots with the Split. They have 7 sectors under their proverbial belt buckle. Okay, so 9 plus 8 plus 6 plus 15 plus 7 equals 45. Huh. What about the other 9 sectors? One word, Xenon. Every territory, save for the Teladi, has at least one gate that leads into Xenon territory. The Xenon are an automated system of killer ships. They don't answer to hails, and they don't let you dock at their stations. When they turn up, you better get lost. They also hold a dark secret. They are what remained, as well as what had been rebuilt since that fateful day all those hundreds of years ago. They are the terraforming AI that almost wiped out Earth. Remember how I said that the Argons just laugh at you for asking about Earth? Well, as it turns out, this is because of centuries of propaganda making sure that no one ever believes that the Earth is real, as not to accidentally direct the Xenon back to where they have been lured away from. Merely the Gona, a religious group residing in the Argon territory, keeps spreading the word of the Earth. Are they going to be of any help in my quest of finding a way back to Earth? Mostly, no. I mean, kind of. That fleet of Earth ships which lured the Xenon away from Earth actually passed through the Argon territory and eventually crashed somewhere in a Paranid sector. And that's the extent of their knowledge. I remember very well that, as a child, I was heavily invested in this story. I wanted to see the pilot making his way back home. However, when the Xenon were introduced, a new feeling started to surface. It wasn't just about being marooned anymore. Now, the feeling of being marooned got mixed with anxiety. At any moment, a Xenon could pop up on the radar. As I previously explained, encountering a Xenon ship early in the game is a sure way to get yourself killed. Unlike the other species, the Xenon only have fighter ships. They will attack you. In spite of how simplistic their and other ship designs in the game are, I was always fascinated and very fond of them. Their smallest ship, in my opinion, bears some resemblance to the USS Defiant from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and the bigger ships have a very slick and aerodynamic design. But despite how cool they look, if you see them, just run. I remember quite a few situations where my big brother had encounters with them, which could sometimes end up taking over 10 minutes just by the virtue of him being outnumbered and his weapons not really dealing the damage that they were supposed to. Which in turn leads to, what you see on screen right now. A spinning motion, an erratic spinning motion that sometimes doesn't spin outright because then you could still get hit. But if you spin the right way, you'll avoid enemy fire semi-effectively, and once again, as I previously mentioned, you might make it back to a station. Mind you, you can always try and redirect the enemy fire towards a station, because any station that gets attacked automatically dispatches defensive ships, and then just pray that those defensive ships are strong enough to get rid of these Xenon which are pursuing you. A specific memory had my big brother and my cousin trying to traverse Xenon territory, only to get their ass handed to them. But more importantly, after having been destroyed, they realized that the last time they had saved had been a few hours earlier, meaning that all the credits that they had gained in the meantime were now tragically lost. I neglected to talk about one specific music piece. It plays whenever you die. Honestly, it feels a bit too sappy. Yeah, no, that's all. It's not a piece you can really enjoy, because whenever it plays, you're gonna be pissed that someone just sent you to Valhalla. Anyway, basic rule for the Xenon: either you have the guns to fuck them up, or the engines to outrun them. I was talking about ship classes earlier, so let's take a look at all the other races. Every race got a transporter class. If the transporter engine light is purple, you got yourself a pirate. We've got small scout ships, normal fighters, bigger fighters, and destroyers, as well as big transporters. Since you won't fly any of these ships, at least not in this game, you will have to figure out how and why they might be advantageous or disadvantageous to you. The big transporters or carriers are needed to buy stations, and you can hire smaller ships from destroyers. Basically, all of these ships can be asked for directions. Not all of them will help you though. When I watched my big brother play X1 back in the day, my child mind did what children's minds are best at doing, filling in shortcomings and limitations with imagination. No, those ships didn't look like that because the graphics were limited. They were that simplistic because their technology is ancient. Just like the gates, these ship designs were ancient, as if someone had just chiseled these shapes and all of their instruments out of some magical alien mineral. It's especially jarring since your ship does have quite a bit of detail to it in comparison. It helps get across the feeling of not fitting in. Something I always loved about these species' ship names was that they all followed some gimmick. The Borons named their ships after sea creatures, such as the Boron octopus. The Split go with dangerous animals, such as the Split scorpion. The Argon go with more of a Star Trek approach, and name their ships after concepts, such as the Argon Buster. I guess that busting makes this ship feel good. The Teladi have birds, with their previously mentioned Teladi Phoenix being an especially cool name. But if you want mythical creatures, there is no better race than the Paranid. They got Pegasi, Hercules, Poseidon, Prometheus, though this ship doesn't know how to fly in more than one direction, and even Ganymede. Wait, who? Oh, yeah, something, City of Troy. Then we have the station designs. As previously mentioned, the Teladi trading stations all look like the 2001 A Space Odyssey station. All the other trading stations found in the game also rotate. By the way, even the Xenon main stations rotate, even though these guys don't even need artificial gravity. Whatever. You got equipment docks that kind of look like billboards. The formerly mentioned solar power plants are present in basically every sector, which makes sense as I previously explained. There are also food type stations like the plankton farms and the boron kahuna presses for the Argons. Computer part production plants. All of these and some more specific stations create an economic system that, as previously mentioned, doesn't make all that much sense. I might get into more detail when it comes to all these specific stations and what they have to offer in my next review, which will be the extension to X Beyond the Frontier extension. It is literally called that. But for now, let's just focus on the here and now. Yet the economical aspects didn't really matter too much to my child mind back then. All of these stations, they just looked so mysterious, like Egyptian temples. Just like the ships, these stations gave off the impression that they had always been there, Cthulhu-esque in their aura. It was also so cool to see the products and resources spin around on their own axes, while your board computer gave you a rundown of what you're looking at. Every species got their own little design quirks, but if I had to choose a favorite, it would 100% be the Borons. Their stations are basically filled with water, which gives them a bluish tint which radiates pure relaxation. Pair that with their good-natured attitude, and you got yourself the coolest guys in the whole game. To be fair, they do look kinda goofy. You know, I could make a hentai joke here, but I don't wanna. X1 was one of the first open-world games that I've ever seen someone play, and so I didn't quite understand why the story took so long to unfold, and why it was sometimes so difficult to find the next clue. The next clue after you discover the Goners is them telling you that you'll need a big-ass missile and a mineral scanner to retrieve a ship log. Both of which are expensive, and the Goner do not have enough money. Well, excuse me, you guys got ships all over the fucking place, and a space station with an expensive-looking, pointless orb to ponder at. How about you sell either of those if Earth is so fucking important to you guys? Fine, I'll go and trade like hell. I also need to become accepted with the Paranids, so let's shoot down some Xenon and pirates. Shooting down enemy ships raises your goodwill with the species whose territory you are currently in. Unlike the quite AI-driven Xenon, the pirates will insult you until their ship has gone off in flames. Okay, they will always insult you regardless if you fight them or not. With all of this out of the way, and a few more side missions as well as buying a station and finally making some cash, just as a side note, always remember that what you are carrying in your cargo bay could potentially be illegal. Examples of this are space fuel, which is just kind of alcohol, space weed, that's just weed, in space, space flies. Think of this selling elephant tusks since space flies are endangered. You can sell and buy all these things in pirate stations and some split stations. But if a patrolling ship finds these items in your cargo bay in an area where they are illegal, you can either drop it or prepare for a fight. That is one of the reasons I always trade with snails. Snails whose shells are brutally crushed and turned into reflective materials for satellites and jewelry. Yes, really, this is perfectly legal. In every territory. Pirates smuggle most of the illegal wares by attempting to cross the Xenon sectors, as these sectors do connect almost all other territories with one another, and any sector that neighbors a Xenon sector almost always has a pirate station. Anyway, as I said, don't smuggle shit. Just farm and crush space snails, which in turn makes me money up the wazoo, allowing me to equip my ship with the best weapons and the strongest shields. Now I can finally be told to pretty much completely wipe out every last stinking artificial intelligence-riddled robot in the game. That's right, I'm supposed to destroy the entire Xenon fleet. Now theoretically you can forge some alliances with the Split, Argon, Boron, Teladi and Paranids to have them sponsor some ships for this suicidal sounding send-off, but in all honesty you can take on the entire fleet on your own. You just gotta fly really close to this mothership and hope not to bloody crash and voila! Defeat the Xenon. Hip hip hooray and a bottle of rum. Can I get back to Earth now? The Argon captain tells you, nope, sorry, ooh, but gives you a 125 megawatt shield as solace. Cool. Now I am stuck with the best shield in the game, the best weapons in the game, and no enemies to fire them at. I guess I could try and score with some aliens then. Crazy boron tentacle sex, here I come. Literally. Or I could try to destroy an entire Argon sector. Not just the pirate ships and Xenon, but the space stations and transporters too. I hate them. Just as a reminder, I practically speaking already did that with all of the Xenon territory. I committed genocide, and my ship is now basically indestructible thanks to that shield upgrade. I could, if I wanted to, try and destroy the entire Commonwealth. Just saying. And that was X Beyond the Frontier. Despite its painfully slow start, the game kind of grows on you. Sure, the trading system is pretty much just buy low, sell high, but there is something zen-like about just flying through the beautiful vastness of space while listening to those sweet soundtrack tunes, and occasionally sending some pirates or Xenon to Kingdom Come. The fighting system is also nothing to gloat about. The enemy ships vary in speed, agility, and shields, as well as weaponry. Once you reach the late-game threshold, none of that matters, you just vaporize them either way. The Xenon have a simple attack pattern, fly at you guns blazing, turn away at the very last moment, sometimes slamming into you and repeating the same maneuver over and over again. If you fly with some basic expertise, you'll be able to stick to their behinds and fill them with energy blasts until they're down. Which would become a lot more complicated with every new installment following X Beyond the Frontier. But for the time being, it was straight to the point. Also, it would take 3 more games until we would reunite with Earth. Now that's a story for another review. This game will always have a special place in my heart as one of the first open world games I've ever seen someone play and played myself. Sure, its extension called extension is already leaps and bounds better, but that does not take away the nostalgia I feel whenever I pick it back up again. Next time in the X universe, we still don't get to go home. A few new sectors are on the map. We finally get to fly more than one ship. We also have to start from scratch for some reason. As well as a working jump engine that won't let us jump back to Earth. Extension. A storyless extension. Good night and good luck to whomever you might be.